Okay, good morning. It's Monday, August 17th, 2020, 9 a.m. This is Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is to review the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Santos and a second by Nathan. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 3 is a public hearing on a request from Russell E. Daufeld, record owner, to rezone approximately 6 acres in 76 Township, 1920 Highway 61, southeast of Highway 61, on the northwest quarter section of 34T76N R3W from C1 Commercial District zoning classification to R1 Residential District zoning classification. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
So we're in a public hearing. Could you just give us a little...
So on July 10th, the zoning commission held a public hearing on this request for rezoning from C1 to C2 commercial to R1 residential. This is on Highway 61, just before the county line, the Wise County line, so it's up beyond top of Isley's Hill. You're probably familiar with it. There's been some old commercial district there for a number of years. Nothing's really ever developed. There's a number of commercial billboards on both sides of 61 in that area. It was unanimously recommended for approval to rezone this property. This is what I would consider a downward departure in land use intensity from C2 to R1. Property owner wishes to build a home on this property. There's been no commercial development in this area. Quite frankly, it's not the most appropriate area for a commercial district. It's considerable distance from any city limits. The likelihood of municipal sewer and water services reaching this area. Since the realignment and expansion to four lane of 61, it'd be challenging for commercial development in this area. Previously, an adjoining property owner had done the same thing, rezoned some of his property to commercial, because it does not allow you to build a single family residence on that property. And that, quite frankly, agricultural and some residential use is the primary use of that immediate area, and we just don't see commercial development potential being very high in that area.
Is the only access to that parcel off of 61?
Yes, at this time it is. And if this, if there was ever to be a subdivision plat developed, we would scrutinize that pretty heavily and expect, appropriate frontage roads and common use of shared drives, so there wouldn't be a number of added driveways.
So since there's already activity there and the residents, then he probably wouldn't have to get a permit or anything to...
There's already an
to
entrance
drive.
there.
There's already an entrance permit
Yeah.
and what's required.
And this is not a subdivision proposal at all. He just wants to be able to build a house there, purchase this property. He actually went forward, I believe, with purchasing it already, and just wants to build a single family residence there.
Now, there's a structure on this property that looks like the only ingress goes to it. Is he planning on building it far enough back so we don't have any setback issues?
Well, I guess he hasn't given us a site plan yet, but it would have to meet the appropriate R1 district setbacks unless a variance is applied for, and he hasn't even gotten to that point yet. The first step is rezoning. So
Okay.
I fully support it just because I don't see this as a very good area for commercial development in the future, and it probably should slowly continue to revert to residential and agriculture. There's a subdivision back through some trees, an older subdivision. It's really the primary use of that area is agricultural and residential.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We need to
Do
close
we,
the,
do we have anybody from the public wanting to, is there any board members with questions or comments? Is anyone from the public? We have some on the line, I think, today. Is that right, Bill?
I have a couple, nobody is unmuted.
Is there anyone, if anyone in the public wishes to comment on that item, please could unmute yourself, or Bill, if you could, and speak up. Seeing no activity, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close.
I have a motion from Santos and a second from Scott. This will be a roll call vote. Santos?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Doug? Nathan?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, next item is discussion possible action to approve an ordinance rezoning approximately 6 acres in 76 Township from C1 commercial to R1 residential on the first of 3 readings.
And I want to note it's C2, that there was a mistake on that, so what you're doing the first reading of ordinance to rezone from C2 to
Okay.
R1.
So it's currently a C2, all right.
Motion this time now.
So I have a motion from Santos. Second from Doug. Any further discussion? This is a roll call vote. Santos?
Aye.
Doug? Aye. Scott?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Item number 4 is items with Planning and Zoning Administrator Eric Furness. From number 4A is review and possible action to accept 3 variances granted by the Muscatine County Board of Adjustment on August 7th, 2020.
Okay, I'll just go through all 3 if that's okay.
Yep.
And if there's anyone you want to single out, obviously you can do that. Case 20-0801 was a variance to allow the property owner to allow the structure they built without a permit to remain. They claimed they didn't understand that the structure of this type required a permit. When we got to looking at it, it was actually in front of the dwelling, which is typically not allowed. So variance was applied for. This is a very uniquely shaped lot off of Moscow Road. That kind of, the way it's situated off the road right away makes it very atypical. So they did grant a variance for that. It's just a simple, basically like a hand-built carport to put a camper under. Because of the orientation of the lot, there's no sight distance issues, no visual obstructions pulling onto 140th Street. It's a long private drive before you get to the public roadway. So that they felt that there was a hardship with the uniqueness of the lot configuration. So that variance was granted. Second one was a variance to allow property owners on New Era Road to build an outbuilding 35 feet from the property line instead of the required 50 feet. This is also kind of a unique lot. The right-of-way in this area is quite large and is actually kind of deceiving when you look at it. The road department came out and located the right-of-way for them when the owner started this whole endeavor of finding out where they could put the dwelling. The current dwelling sits closer. It predates the setbacks. So the current dwelling already sits closer than the 50 feet that would be required today. This structure would not be any closer to the road than the existing dwelling. And given the steep slope and the size of the right-of-way there, it is still like over 100 feet from the travel portion of the road. So there's a tree line between the road and where this building is, so you wouldn't even see it. So the Board of Adjustment felt that the hardship was proven and that there would be no negative altering of the characteristics. So that variance was granted as well. Third one was a lot in Riverview subdivision up towards Mount Pelier on Riverview Circle. The owner wants to build an addition onto an existing dwelling that would be approximately 18 feet from the front lot line instead of the required 50 feet. This subdivision actually predates any of our zoning and our setbacks. So if you look at in this whole subdivision, almost all of the houses do not meet the current setbacks. So this actually will be very consistent with the subdivision and the orientation of the houses on all those lots. They're private streets. It's not a road that has frontage to Highway 22. It's an interior lot. Given that the lots, when they were platted, actually predated the zoning ordinance, they felt that there was a hardship there created by kind of our ordinance, and that it was consistent with the other houses in the area. So that variance was granted as well.
What's the nature of the structure?
He's gonna build an addition with a garage, like an under the garage underneath, and then a sunroom on the top of it coming off the front of the house.
Thanks.
So it'll still be farther back than a lot of the houses are already in that older subdivision, so it's not changing the characteristics of that area at all. So those are the 3 variances that were granted.
Okay, any questions or comments, board members? Not, I'd accept the motion to accept the variances granted.
So moved.
Have a motion by Nathan,
Second.
second by Scott. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, item B is to review special use permits granted by the Muscatine County Board of Adjustment on August 7th, 2020.
Okay, there were two special use permits granted. The first one was for a rural residence. This was a lot on the south side of 180th Street up east, going towards like Wildcat Den area. It's a lot that years ago had a foundation, at least a partial house, and I'm going back quite a ways. There's been nothing on the property for years and years other than this foundation is still in the ground. They granted the special use permit even though the lot is only 0.8 acres instead of the required 1.0 acres for that zoning district. And part of the reason they did that is because that lot had actually been created years ago and predated that minimum 1 acre requirement. Today, we wouldn't allow anything less than 1.0 acres in the A1 district, but that has been there. It's not, a small portion of it's being farmed by the adjoining property owner. The CSR of the area is not very high. It's just slightly above the 55, I think, that they normally look at. And so they felt since it really wasn't taking much prime farm ground out of production, there had been a house there previously, they granted a special use permit for a rural residence. Second one was a special use permit to allow a property owner to extract gravel, stone, clay, or other raw materials from his property to sell for fill. This is on Seven Springs Road, just south of Highway 22. This is not something that we see very typically, but this would be like a quarry if you were going to start extracting or mining rock or clay. It does require a special use permit, certainly in the A1 area. Right now, I think the only places we have those types of ongoing facilities are in heavy industrial areas, the wetland quarries, and then obviously down on the island in the heavy industrial area, but it is a special use permit. Have the owner owns a trucking and does a little bit of excavating, but mostly hauling of rock and materials. Needed a borrow area for ongoing projects in the future. We looked at this in detail because of the concerns. This is a gravel road, so I met extensively with Keith and we worked through requirements to attach to the special use permit to cover things like damage to the road, additional dust control, signage, notification to the county engineer's office prior to commencing activities. A whole list of requirements I think are listed in your packet. He did consent and had already planned on doing those, would be responsible 100% at his expense to hauling, applying, grading any material that's needed and repairing any damage to the road in the future, and responsible for putting up the appropriate signage that notifies motorists of trucks coming onto and off of Seven Springs Road, as well as Highway 22, where they would be coming out on Seven Springs. He would be required to coordinate with the DOT to get permission for those signs, so that was granted as well.
What kind of environmental concerns are presented here?
So he does have to meet all the DNR and EPA requirements, including general permit number 2, an NPDS permit for stormwater control, and then clearing, your stripping or clearing more than an acre requires that. He's already submitted his paperwork for that. That would be required before he can commence any activity. They've done the endangered or threatened wildlife studies on that site as well, but that's all conditional in the special use permit as well. So there are multiple agencies for this type of activity that he would have to get appropriate permits.
And then would this be under the, some type of mining ordinance or regulation, then would be, the activities there would be monitored long-term by, like, the DNR or others?
Well, sure. I mean, I think anytime you have any type of activity, you do have to answer to fugitive dust complaints, whether it's from the road or the site, and that is regulated by the DNR, that type of thing. He's not extracting rock, so we don't anticipate any blasting in this area. That was not at all included in the motion to approve. This was strictly to remove clay, strip and remove clay, and create a borrow area. So my opinion is the special use permit would not give him the right to start extracting gravel because it was specifically requested for a clay borrow area. So blasting was not addressed, and I don't believe would be included in an activity, as an activity under this special use permit.
You said he'd be required
the dust control of the road.
Yes, it actually, we require him to dust control from 200 feet south of the entrance all the way to Highway 22, where they would pull on. It is, it's 5 to 6/10 of a mile, I believe. But we had to sit down, he came to our office, sat down with Keith and I, and we went through all of our concerns, and he was more than happy to meet them, and had already planned on doing those things, but we went ahead and made them a requirement in the special use permit issuance.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns on the special use permit? Eric, did you have anything else for us this morning?
I don't believe so.
Good, thank you. Okay, item number 5 on the agenda, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 08-17-2001 supporting the naming of a local bridge in honor of Chuck Gertz. Santos, did you want to lead that discussion for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, I had gotten several emails in regards to this, and reviewed some of the information that the individual that was trying to promote this had reached out to us and the board, and had reached out to the DNR, or the DOT, I'm sorry, and the steps that they needed to do. And one of the steps was providing that information to us as a board. And then they would end up getting the permission to be able to take it back to the DOT. If the bridge does get approved through the DOT, then there's actually the cost to put up the sign and just putting that up over by the bridge, and then potentially whatever issues that or concerns would have to be from that would be the cost of getting the sign. And I asked, I did email them back actually in regards to that, if that was something they would be doing their fundraising for, and they said that they would. I believe that the DOT had told them that the cost could be between $750 to $1,500 for a sign, putting that, and that they would do that fundraising if we would just do the approval to be able to do that. Not saying that this gives them the approval, this just gives them the opportunity to take it to the DOT level and give them that. And that, knowing the requirements and the amount of contributions that Mr. Gertz had provided for the community, I think he met all of those guidelines in regards to being a true contributor to the Muscatine County and the community, reaching out as many as he did. So that's why I wanted to bring it to the board and see if we could.
And so this basically requires a resolution by this board to support the application for that process.
Correct.
And the ultimate decision of whether that happens or not happens at the state level.
Correct.
Through the DOT, is my
Yes,
understanding.
and then they would communicate to us if that was approved. But obviously our support would be the biggest, I think, influence, and hopefully allowing that DOT to do that, knowing that that is a state road.
Well, I would move to approve and just note that the number's gone back and forth a little bit, but something like 17 veterans take their own lives every day. And, mental health is something I think this board has prioritized, as well as veterans issues. And someone who's done something to make a difference in those folks' lives, I think is worthy of recognition. And we've all seen the need for that, so I would move to approve.
Okay, and I have a motion by Nathan and a
I
second.
would just like to make a comment on this, that Chuck had done this for a long time too. It wasn't something that just one or two isolated incidents. This was something he was passionate about in helping veterans, and spent a tremendous amount of his own time just to help others in need. And I commend him for that, and I'm totally in favor of it.
Okay, any other comments? This would be a roll call vote. Nathan?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, item number 6, is discussion of possible action to approve a Muscatine County disaster declaration pertaining to the derecho storm on August 10th, 2020 with emergency manager Brian Wright.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Here to request that disaster declaration for Muscatine County. We did experience significant damage throughout the county. Basically, Muscatine had winds clocked at 75 miles an hour. According to the Weather Service, West Liberty probably had anywhere from 80 to 90 mile an hour winds. So we do have a lot of branches, debris, power outages. West Liberty experienced the power grid. The power grid was knocked off. They are back up running. Atalissa also experienced a power outage, so they're back up. Correction, that was Nichols. Atalissa is still without power, and I've been in communication with the mayor on that. Shortly after, actually that day, I did go out and canvass the county, see what damage we did have. I did request through Iowa Homeland Security Emergency Management to have a state individual assistance, which I received. I anticipate Governor today is going to request an expedited presidential major disaster declaration for public assistance. So we're just going to go through the formalities just to request Muscatine County have a disaster declaration.
So, and maybe this may be a joint question, maybe Keith, you're here. Did we see a lot of issues? It seemed like I was headed towards West Liberty and you must have had to be out clearing trees off roads a bit. Not bad.
Not, frankly, the county road's not too bad. We had a call here and there. I can't get home because there's a tree across the road. Typically trees that are not on the county right away, but behind that, they become our tree when they fall across the road. We didn't have a lot, but of course,
Moscow.
there is extensive damage in the towns with
Yeah.
trees down. I'm well aware of Moscow, but we in relative terms, what I've seen over a career, we didn't have much.
Yeah, I was out, I think I came across 6 and it looked somebody'd been up there working or something. I know you guys had done some ditch work there earlier in the year, probably a good thing. So, good. I was in Iowa City and Cedar Rapids this week and they got hit really, really hard,
Yeah.
those people are.
Yeah, they did.
Now, with aside from some of the tree damage, which there was quite a bit if you drove through the county as I did, but what really took a lot of damage were pole buildings, machine sheds, and empty grain bins. If you had an empty grain bin, it was really susceptible to some severe damage, and that's going to cause some real issues moving forward here in about 6 weeks when harvest starts to gear up and the ability to handle its grain, and that's going to be a severe problem down the road here in a short distance down the road.
Yeah.
And a lot of machine sheds and pole buildings damaged, and there again, the problem is going to be to try to get the crews and the labor with the volume that has been destroyed in eastern Iowa to be able to get these rebuilt in a period of time.
4 to 6 weeks.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not gonna happen this year.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of dollars in damage out there, gonna cause a lot of chain reaction effects in the ag industry going into this fall.
Huh? Okay, anything else, Brian?
No.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7, discussion possible action to approve the minutes of the August 10th, 2020 regular meeting.
So moved.
No.
Wait.
You
We
guys
never
didn't
had a
vote, you didn't
motion.
vote on the last one.
I didn't do it? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we need to take action on that. We approve for Brian to go ahead and make that disaster declaration. Sorry, Brian.
Also move that. How about
I have a motion by Nathan and a second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. I apologize for that. Okay, item 7, discussion possible action to approve the minutes of the August 10th, 2020 regular meeting. I have a motion by Doug, second by Scott. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number 8 is correspondence. Santos, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah, I had a call for a road on I-55, and Kelly Avenue was gonna get with you, Keith, on that. They just asked me, since that road used to have rumble strips and now it doesn't. And I don't remember if it did or if it didn't, but I know it's the road going towards Adelissa, that back road.
Which
Page.
road?
Is that Kelly?
Kelly?
150 what?
155th?
And 155th?
Yeah, on the southerly, end of it before the Cedar there, on, F-70. At Kelly and F-70 is
Yeah.
probably what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that did have rumble strips prior.
Yeah.
And when it was redone,
Took
they
them
were
out. Okay, well, they
They're
were just
not-
asking, it was just,
That's new road now.
that's what I mean. And then there's not rumble strips on that.
they just said that they felt that they needed it, knowing how many different traffics they'd have on the other roads, and I said, oh, I didn't know any of that, so. I told them that I would just bring it up, and
Yeah.
ask Keith about it, so.
Yeah, I noticed that right away when that was done, back last year or 2 years ago, whatever it's been now. And my wife even asked me when we were coming down, the road was just opened up, she said, there's not rumble strips on here anymore. And I said, well, no, there's not. I said, must have been determined that it wasn't needed. I
What
can't-
determines that, I guess?
You
I didn't
have
even know
to
the
ask that
answer to
gentleman
that.
right back there in the back.
Okay, we
When
can,
do they decide rumble strips, Keith? Traffic?
There are studies out on rumble strips, I mean, Iowa Highway Research Board, National Research Board. Except there's nothing that necessarily determines it. Normally, if they're there, we put them back, but pretty much proven quite ineffective.
To
If you're
entertain my
alert-
kids.
If you're alert, they're effective. If you're out of it,
Yeah.
they're a little bit. That's what we find out. People run through them,
yeah.
don't wake up.
Well, they just called me and asked me about
Okay.
it, concerned about it, thinking that they thought it was still needed, so I figured I'd at least communicate that piece.
Okay.
Then I had gotten the email from Brian in regards to the FEMA public assistance. And then I got the email from the woman in regards that you forwarded from the jail, and the concerns there that you forwarded on to the sheriff.
So just note, Leslie, that there was a concern over handling of COVID and general conditions in the jail, and it was forwarded to the sheriff for response.
Oh,
And I think everybody got that.
Yeah, also the poll worker volunteer. I think Nancy said
That's
that.
right, yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Santos? Thank you. Nathan?
I got the same correspondence, except I didn't get the one about Kelly and 155th, but the ones that were forwarded to all of us. And I just want to say about the individual who inquired and volunteered to be a poll worker, that's fantastic. We're, in this time, it's very difficult for the auditor to find poll workers, so anybody else who wants to do that, please feel free to throw your name in the hat, because we need them.
I think we also
Yes,
got,
we are actively looking for poll workers, and if anybody, has, especially people who are not in the risk category, like some of the older folks, can be, we really do desperately need poll workers for this election.
Okay. Anything else, Nathan? I had no other correspondence. That was pretty much mine. Scott?
I had the same emails with the COVID, as well as, I did have a phone call from a resident in Moscow concerned about the speed of the traffic coming through Moscow. And I conveyed to that gentleman that I would have a conversation with CJ and in regard to looking at some enforcement there, because he wanted signage changed, and we had a discussion of the signage won't make any difference. Enforcement is what will make the difference. And after a conversation, he agreed with that line of thought, and that's how we're going to attempt to slow those folks down a little bit. That's all I had.
It's already 35.
Right.
It's a 35-mile-an-hour limit, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same emails assess some damage and he took a look at the fairgrounds for me. They got tore up pretty good. Plus Liberty FFA assisted on Wednesday, some private citizens, and a lot of board members got it all cleaned up, so.
Very good. What about committees, Doug? Did you have committee reports?
No
this week?
committee reports, just would like to mention that this coming Saturday, the 22nd, is the Super Late Models coming to Liberty Raceway, so. Be a good race, that's all I've got.
I had no committees.
All I had was on the 12th, Wednesday the 12th, I had the Mississippi Valley Workforce Area Finance Committee. That was it for me.
On Friday, the 14th, I had the 7th District Judicial Correctional meeting. We had some nice discussion about our strategic plan going forward for the next 5 years, and I think that was really beneficial. The only person in attendance from the public said that he'd been to several different judicial districts in their meetings, said we're the only ones who actively have discussions, and he really appreciated that, so it was nice to hear. And I said that was probably the nicest way anyone's ever called me a jerk before, that we have such active discussions. But in any event, we had some good discussion, and it's a good organization with good folks running it.
Good. Santos?
We had a We Lead meeting, on Thursday of last week.
Okay. Okay, item number 10, items with the administration office. Item number 10A is discussion of possible action to approve an ordinance adopting the 2020 Muscatine County Code of Ordinances on the first of 3 readings.
And this is the code requires that every 5 years we have to re-adopt our code of ordinances. So we're not adding anything new to it, we're just codifying the things that you've done in the last 5 years into the existing one.
Okay.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion by Nathan,
Second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion? This is a roll call vote. Nathan?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Item B is discussion of possible action to accept a proposal from GSA Turf Services to install an irrigation system at the lot of 4th and Walnut Streets. That, Sherry, is that the one we reviewed last week and all pretty much the same?
No, this is the additional
Oh,
space that you guys asked for, an estimate to do the space on, between their Frederick Historic Building and Walnut Street in that area.
Okay.
That was excluded from the original amount. So this is the piece in addition to,
That's the grass lot right on the corner,
yes.
am I correct? Yeah.
Yes.
I think this is something that would be very beneficial in regard to just the actual visual of the grounds and of the complex. And I'm personally in favor of it.
yeah, I think that the crew, our grounds crew has done a nice job and we've given them the asset to take care of the property and I think it looks really nice down here. That, I think cleaning that other corner up and getting this one to where it's more maintainable, make it good for everybody. And I know we talked last week that, you know, there may be other things happening with that, the old historic jail that might make some of this have to be redone, but they have a lot of money to raise and time to get that done, so I would rather have it presentable in a nice area. I think it's a good idea too. Any other comments? Not, I would look for a motion.
I'd move to approve.
Got a motion from Scott, second from Doug. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item C, discussion of possible action to approve and adopt the Muscatine County HIPAA Policies and Procedures Master Manual.
This has been a long process. Bill Riley and I have met bi-weekly, virtually with the company that we hired to help us through this process. So we've been doing this for multiple months, meeting bi-weekly, reviewing various different policies and procedures, and we're at a point where we've been through all of those, made the changes that we thought were necessary. It now goes to you guys to approve this manual. We then notify employees and start the training process. And so at the end of this process, it's my understanding, we may come back to you with some modifications to that policy if we find things that are an issue as we work through the training.
This basically puts our policy in place, and
Yes.
it'd be a normal policy as we find errors, omissions, additions, we just go through the process. Okay. Yeah, this has been a long and arduous process, to say the least.
It has been.
And I appreciate you and Bill's staying after it, because it is really exciting stuff.
I'm glad you feel that way, because you guys will be expected to go through some training as well, so.
Yeah.
In the legal circles, we call HIPAA the Full Lawyer Employment Act.
Yes.
It absolutely keeps plenty of us in business.
Okay, so I would accept a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion by Santos,
Second?
second by Nathan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item D, discussion possible action to appoint an alternate board of supervisor representative to the Eastern Iowa Mental Health Disability Services Region. So, one of the, just a brief comment about this, so one of the issues that we've had in the last, this was brought up by Clinton County, I believe, was the issue was, there was a voting matter where Clinton County didn't get a vote. Because their representative, a family member, had an emergency, had to be in an emergency room, was unable to attend the meeting, and they had another supervisor go to the meeting in his stead to cast their vote and wish. It was not an accepted vote because they weren't a member of the board. So one of the things in the 2080, as you all remember, we just redid the 2080. We added to the 2080 that each county would designate an alternate. Therefore, if our board member was unable to attend, that an alternate could attend in their place and would have full voting rights. So I think this is a good stopgap. I expect it hasn't happened a lot in history. But again, the governing board does make some very important decisions, and it's important that we have a voice and that every member has a voice. And if you recall now, this year there was a pretty significant change in the 2080 with the adding of the children's services as well. So now we have two non-elected officials, or is it three, on the board? I don't remember the number exactly, and they do have voting rights as well. So it's very important that the policymakers and the elected officials are there and their voice is counted for the taxpayer, in my opinion. So I think this was a good change, and so I'm looking for somebody, or looking for an alternate, to have an alternate in case it would be, since I currently serve in that, if I could not make it. And then we appoint our board members first meeting in January typically. Nancy, is that correct? So this would be until January reappointments, so
Till 5 more meetings.
5 more meetings.
I could do that.
Did you say you would be interested in that? Is that what I heard,
Said
Santos?
I can do that if needed.
Go nuts,
Okay.
man.
If somebody wants to take over or wants to jump in front, that's fine too.
Okay, so I have a volunteer of Santos. That sounds great to me. Anybody have any objections to Santos?
None.
If so, hit him. No. So did I hear a motion, Dave?
Yes.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
I have a motion by Doug, and we have a second by Nathan. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? It's your lucky day, Santos. It's back to a more normal meeting schedule now. We meet once every third Monday or something. It's this week.
Generally.
Today it is, and it's usually a 2 or 3 hour meeting, but not so bad. Okay, item E is discussion of possible action authorizing the chair to sign a letter to the Muscatine County Recorder. This is something we put on the agenda, and I hate to do this, and it's as you all know, we are only responsible for budgets, and we have elected officials running offices, and we've had numerous complaints. I think you all have We've discussed this kind of individually. So I would like to send this letter to emphasize to all of our, and really it's an emphasis to any elected official, that we are here for the public, we serve the public, we keep building hours, and it's expected to staff your offices during those public hours, to answer phones and to be available.
Have we done this in the past?
No, this is a new thing.
Okay.
Well, especially now, I think with
But that's potentially reopening and stuff. is it?
that, and yeah, when offices are being, or have been closed, and when it's difficult for the public to access services in a lot of cases anyway, this is especially important, so I would move to approve.
So I have a motion by Nathan,
I'll second.
second by Scott. Any further discussion?
I think this letter just kind of goes over expectations, is what I see.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Item number F is review and possible action to approve safety guidelines for reopening Muscatine County buildings to the public.
And you received a version in the packet, and then shortly thereafter, you were sent an updated version. I had given it to the county attorney's office, and due to their scheduling, they were not able to get it back to me until after we'd already put the agenda out. So this version has been added to and comes with a recommendation of the county attorney's office.
And then Jim, I think you had staff look at this, you and staff, and this is kind of goes along with guidance and, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I received what Nancy had sent out Thursday evening and had an appointment in Des Moines on Friday, so I got back Friday afternoon, took a quick look at it. I did take the opportunity on Thursday to talk with another outside attorney relative to this, about it, and some of the things that they were doing, and recommending to other county and city offices as things begin to reopen. So she was kind enough to share with me additional information that was then inserted into what Nancy had prepared. So this was based really solely on what Nancy had sent me and those additional recommendations. This is not something that I've had time Friday to, I think I sent this out it was about after 4:30
Yep.
or 4:45. I've not discussed it with anybody at my office. What's in there in terms of masks, et cetera, was really more in line with what I understood the board wanted to do or the board was looking at. So this is really, from my perspective, just a starting point for discussion.
And I think that as it goes in, it's just we're asking people to social distance and mask wherever practical and possible, and respect other space and provide things. Okay. Are there comments, or I mean, I read through it quickly, and I'll have to think that's not my strength, is reading through minutia documents.
I think it looks very good. I think it will probably qualify us under that state safe harbor law, and more importantly, promote safety, which I think is good. And I thank you guys for looking at it and putting it together on such a short turnaround.
Yeah, what it added to what Nancy had worked on was the public, and then what do we do with employees if we have any issues? And so obviously we need to still add in some information about who that contact would be for the county, but obviously we can do that. So
Yep.
that's primarily what it focused on. The rest of it was consistent with what's being recommended.
And I think generally speaking, our employees kind of understand, because they've been asking screening questions, so they are pretty familiar with the symptoms, and that if they exhibit them or family members, we ask them to quarantine or isolate themselves and do all of those good things. So
And I
that's
think
very
our employees have done a good job of that. If there's even a question about whether their illness might be COVID related, they've done a good job of reporting that and staying home and following the guidelines, so.
And I think, relatively speaking, we've done pretty well as a county. I think we've had very limited issues, and when we've had them, we've been able to manage through them effectively, so I think, yeah, that's, yeah, who knows, we, you know, everything will go, so, I think everything has gone well, okay. So where are we at on this? So this is basically, we have a policy in place, so then we're in good shape, and then I think we talked about, at the last meeting that we would consider, so what's today, the 17th?
And you talked about, opening on the 24th.
Okay,
That was just the discussion last week.
you need to run with me more often for my memory. You help me out in many areas. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know if that's still what the board's thoughts are, that we look toward a move to implementing this policy and look to a reopening of the buildings on the 24th. Jim?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that I didn't, I believe I confirmed this morning that the court system was looking at September 8th.
Okay.
And I just found that out this morning by talking to an employee, so I have not seen anything formal, but just wanted you to have that information as it bears on what we're talking about here, at least for some, at least for the county courthouse and a couple of people over there.
And do we know other, like the city departments, other cities, what they're doing in the county and where they're at, and the schools, what they're doing?
The schools are gonna open on the 24th here in Muscatine.
24th, okay.
The city's already, has been open.
They opened last week.
City opened last week. Okay.
And, yeah, the schools are, the students, the parents had the option to either attend in person or they could have virtual learning. So I don't know the counts on percentage-wise on who
One or
chose
the
to
other.
attend, one or the other. I don't know those numbers, but,
And I can tell you statewide, there's only about, I think, 17 counties that aren't completely reopened.
Yeah, probably down to the last few of us that had a little,
I think the area, I think if you
Larger
look at
outbreaks
the map, that's exactly, it kind of coincides with where the larger outbreaks were.
yeah. And I think, I mean, maybe Brian, things have kind of, we had a little, again, we spiked a little bit early on, but it's kind of calmed back down. Just kind of floating around, it seems like we go anywhere from 2 to 6 cases every day or two. I mean, we're right around 900 cases, aren't we now?
As of yesterday, we have a total of 888 positive cases. There were no deaths. 7,223 people have been tested and 741 have recovered.
Okay. All right, so what is it the desire of the board, if it is, to open on the 24th, open the buildings back up to the public, issue the note? We had talked about some like sanitizing stations as well, Nancy. do you have-
Right, and they have looked into that, and we find that it's gonna take us a little while to get the actual sanitizing station, so, General Services has purchased enough hand sanitizer that we'll have, like at the treasurer's office, we'll have one between the two windows, each of the two stations where people work, and be able to provide that to other offices as well, until we can get the ones that we can actually mount to the wall.
Are we putting any signage outside for mask recommended or mask required, or what are we putting?
I think we will put a sign that contains some of this information, on the doors before we open as well. I think that's the intent.
Yeah, I think we'd recommend people, if they're into hallways and areas where they're unable to socially distance, that they please wear a mask, and I think we ask them to do that. I don't expect county employees to be police officers and to manage that. I think if people want to take that risk and not follow those recommendations, and that's their prerogative, I guess, but I would hope, I mean, I'm around all over all the time, and I see people are generally speaking, most people have a mask with them and they're wearing them when they're in situations when they can't socially distance, from what I've seen.
We need a motion on
Yep.
this.
So if you wanna move forward, we need you to take action on these guidelines. And then if you wanna pick a date to reopen, we need that
So
direction
you'd
as well.
look, do we approve you'd look for a motion to approve the safety guidelines
Yes.
and with an opening date of
I'd make that
August
motion.
24th. Okay, so we have a motion from Doug. Do we have a second?
Second that
Se-
motion.
Second from Santos. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay. Nancy, did you have other items?
The one other that I would have is Bill just reported before the meeting that we do now have the necessary telephone equipment installed out at Conservation to be able to hold a public meeting, that can also be available virtually, so, if you guys wanna look at setting a date to have that the public discussion about the use of ATVs on county roads. That's kind of what we were waiting on, was that equipment.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we just, I don't know, would anybody have, throw some dates out there, I guess, and just float it and see if the building is available, for me to say, and
Early September.
sometime in September?
Early September.
Are you looking for a daytime meeting, an evening meeting?
I would look for, I would say probably evening would be the best. I think you get your best participation. If we're gonna do it, I would just as soon get as good a participation as we can, so we can
I
hear.
I would also consider not going too deep into September, in regard to, there's probably, a number of ag people out there that have interest in this. And I wouldn't go too deep into September, as they're, number one, cleaning up, number two, trying to prepare for fall harvest, so I
I'll-
would keep it at the front
I'll
end
talk
if
with
it was me.
Conservation and
Just see if we can get some in the
see
first
what
couple of weeks of
see what I can
September.
get, like the first week in September. And we'll report that back to you next week.
Okay. Very good. Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Item number 11 is to receive information from county employees. We have a few here. Keith?
Well, before we receive information, did you set a date for reopening? Cause I didn't,
24th, 9 AM.
did they do a motion? 'Cause I heard-
Yes,
Okay.
they did a motion to accept the
None
guidelines
of us
and
got it back there.
with an opening date of August 24th.
I guess. Very quickly, F-58, Old Highway 6, Durant to Walcott. Culverts are all in, asphalt patches are all in, which means limited traffic through the construction zone. Ditch cleaning still going on, sub drains are to start middle of the week, so we're told. G28, they're paved past Seven Springs. The paver, to the point where the pavement widens from 26 to 30 feet. Hire has their pavers sat there on Seven Springs, which means on a road, those type people have to go out to the north. What does that matter? But what it matters is once that paver sets back there, we have a lot of traffic that comes, not people living out there, that does their best to find their way through there. They're gonna get to Seven Springs, driving past multiple sets of barricades, and they're gonna decide they're gonna go north on Seven Springs. That's what's gonna happen. So we're looking at doing some additional dust control on Seven Springs as soon as we can make it happen. Cause that's, right now, they're kind of the only folks generating additional dust, but it'll more than likely get worse. Everybody to the west of Seven Springs has to go west. They can't get there, but once they're able, it'll be not necessarily the locals, but it'll be the people.
Where's the official detail or detour? Down like High Prairie, running them out?
Yeah,
Okay.
But they can also, until Burlington Road gets closed off, they can go to Funk's Hill, and they can stay on they're the only folks that currently that currently don't have an option, but they'll have it soon to get back out on paved
Yeah,
roads.
so they can't get to pavement right now on full.
But we're still concerned that traffic will pick up and cause a dust problem there. Beyond that, so they're working on tearing out the pavement going down the hill and be working on that reconstruction section, so there really isn't gonna be anybody going east for quite some time.
And so that's where the straightening and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the major bunch of work right there coming down the hill.
I really think here on out, kind of, and getting past Burlington Road and Luzerne Home, that is kind of our toughest, our slowest go here.
I mean, it seems like it's moved along at a pretty good pace.
It has, and to the west, I mean, they're shouldered, people's driveways are poured back, I mean, we're good situation there, but anyway, that's, all I got on projects.
Okay.
I have one question, Keith.
Yes, sir.
The way this weather is coming, and we've started into a little bit of a dry spell here, have your grader operators commented on any washboarding issues that seem to surface when all the moisture goes out of the gravel roads and so on? The roads I've been in throughout the county in the last week, which was quite a few, I didn't see hardly any issue there at all. They're in really good shape. But I know what's going to come if we don't get some moisture on these, and which is typical in August and into early September. Didn't know if you had any feedback on that.
They hadn't commented a lot. We were currently in the second round of dust control, so they have been, dust controls that are potholed. They have been turning them up, which generates some comment there, but they're just simply getting them ready for the second round. But and they're mostly staying off the roads other than that, spotting, driving a truck and spotting rot.
They look good to me.
And if you do get a wash, it's dry, there's not a lot
You can't do anything with it.
because you have moisture to cut those.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very good, thank you.
thanks, Keith. Jim?
Thank you. Just wanted to update you, today is the first pilot jury trial. They're currently selecting a jury at Central. Plan is, once the jury's been selected, to move back to the courthouse and try the rest of the case, which has kind of been our plan all along. The ability to use some of the other sites we've been looking at is in question. So we may be looking to try to work with the school system to maybe use Central Auditorium a bit more than we'd anticipated. The armory's still in limbo. The churches are a question mark at this point. But I did think it was worth updating you to let you know that we are taking that step today. The first scheduled trial would then be mid-September. But I think the school system, as well as numerous other people, need to be recognized. I would say the school system, without a doubt, in Muscatine has bent over backwards to be of assistance to the court system, and I think that needs to be recognized. Everybody really has come together that's needed to participate. The court system, the clerk, the county, the sheriff's office with security, and just trying to get through this first one to get all the kinks worked out so that when we can get to actually doing them, we aren't floundering around trying to figure out what to do, and hopefully today will bear that out. Actually, and Bill with IT has been to several meetings and maybe even more coming, because we're gonna have to figure out in the courtroom how to let at least one or two of the jurors who can't see the video screen have access to the exhibits that everybody else is gonna be seeing, just because of the configuration and the spacing of people. We're gonna have some issues there, and we're gonna have to figure out what to do with the public, because obviously the public isn't gonna be able to get in the courtroom, so we're looking at maybe another location we can feed to in the courthouse that would give the public access to the trials as well, because, whether it's family members or just public in general. So there's still some things to work out, but my hope is after today, we at least have that phase of it. We get into the school system, see where we can use it, where we can't use it, because there's gonna be some restrictions, particularly in December, with using that facility with all of the school and Christmas stuff that's already booked. So more to come, but I thought you should understand that there has been, and I'm sure will continue to be, a lot of cooperation, which is important to make something like this work very well.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
thank you.
Jim, while you're up, how are we coming along on the forcible entry detainers? Has that started, or now that I know that some of those funding sources are?
Yeah, my understanding was those were still being held, but that was my understanding most recently. I didn't understand those had been released yet until maybe later this month was the next 24th, maybe was it 20, something like that was the next time that was to come up.
Okay.
So they've done some relaxing in other areas, but I don't recall that they relaxed in that area yet.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, Heather, Eric?
I guess, since I finally heard that you did take action to look towards reopening there, next week, our next zoning commission board of adjustment meetings are Friday, September 11th. So, seems like this building's gonna be open, so with your approval, I'll plan on going back to our regular commission. At this point, we have one zoning commission meeting on schedule, and we don't have any more adjustments, so I don't anticipate a large crowd, but,
No, I think that's fine.
so we'll reestablish our residency here, I guess.
Yep. Yep. And we appreciate the Conservation Board for being, and Conservation Facility making that available and helping us through this, so it's been good. Everybody actually, the community, all the groups have worked well together and to kind of get through this issue, so I appreciate everybody's support. Any other county employees have anything?
I guess
Amy?
I'll just say, property tax statements should be in people's mailboxes today, starting. And I know that's gonna generate people coming in as well. We're trying to, I sent a press release to Discover Muscatine again, that'll be in Tuesday or, this week, and then again, I'll do it for next week, for that. And we're asking people to use the online Dropbox by mail for tax payments. We mail out receipts. I did order, we've got the spots on the floor for, in front of each clerk, and I ordered 4 more to put against the wall, kind of staggered from that. And I'm gonna post that we are limiting to 8 customers in the
Immediate
treasure
area.
And anybody else really needs to wait outside, because otherwise they're gonna stand right in front of the front door. I don't really know how to post that other than just that. And I know that's gonna create problems for administration or any of us, you know, coming down. But it is hard for the girls to wait on customers and try to police people standing, so I'll just ask for cooperation.
And like Jeff said before, I don't think we can police people. I mean, we can ask
Yeah,
people to do, and, you know, to use common sense and to try to social distance, but
right.
I
And
think
we're
we'll just
trying
have to deal with
put
it
in
as
the
it
press
goes.
release to limit the number of people that come in. You know, it's working now with appointments. People are following our instructions
Right.
and being very cordial about it. And like we discussed, I think, retail places now are asking more of people for that stuff too, so they're a little bit used to it.
It'll
but-
change, seems like every time, you know,
I
every
know.
other time I'm at a retailer, somebody's
Yeah,
kind of taking great issue with things, so.
but just to let you know, that's what I'm planning to do.
Very good.
so.
Okay.
And you're not gonna have as many problems as I stated earlier. The retailers, the grocery stores have done a very nice job of training the public. And I don't think we're gonna have as large a problem as one might think because of the training that's been implemented already in the past few months. So, I think people are more conscientious about it. You're gonna have a few that aren't.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's not your job to police that. I think the majority of people are pretty conscientious about it.
Yeah, I would agree.
And we'll work through, if issues come up, we'll work through them as we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, any other county employees? No? Okay, item number 12 is to receive comments from the public. Do we have anyone from the public? I think you should be able to unmute, or you're unmuted. Would like to make a comment today? Please state your name and address and issue.
Yes, Don Briggs from Fruitland. How you doing, guys?
Doing
Hey,
well.
I've got a couple questions for you. When you do have that public meeting and stuff, are you going to be able to have so many people in the building, or is everything going to be on Zoom or go-to meeting?
I think the intention would be to do both. So for those that are interested in attending in person, that we would allow that, because that meeting room should have pretty good space. I don't know how many we had. Brian, how many did we have in the EMA? 20 people?
Oh, less than that, probably, maybe 15.
Yeah, so it'll handle 15, 20 people, no problem. And then we would also make it available with GoTo or electronically, I think would be our intention.
Okay, and I would suggest try to go to a Wednesday night meeting, because with school starting, there's activities on stuff for the kids and everything for the school on all days but Wednesdays. And then on my second question is, you guys need to go down to Deep Lakes and look at those cabins. I don't know if you've been there or not, but they look nice. Haven't been in them, but they look nice from the outside.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree that I've been down there. It's going to be a great asset for the conservation board down there. Okay. Anything else this morning,
That's all
Don?
I got.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Anyone else on the line wishing to share comments? Hearing and seeing none?
I wanted to bring up a comment.
yeah.
I know Doug brought up, last week I was over Zoom or on the go-to meeting, but we had talked about the opening of the county building. And, do you know the status on that still, for the county building, the new maintenance county building? We had put up handrails that they needed to put up.
Those are up. The handrails
But
are
the
up.
last I heard, there was still
There
still
was
an
an
issue.
issue with the handrails. The city inspector copied me on an email to Mike Nolan and to Oscar, because there was an issue with them not meeting compliance. So Mike Nolan has reached out to, because there's actually two ramps. There's a ramp that comes down along, and then it turned at the landing, and there was about a 40-inch section that actually dropped just enough to meet the requirement to be considered the ramp where it meets the public sidewalk. And so that handrail was found to be not in compliance because there was no handrail there. So they are coordinating with the contractor to have additional handrail sections. So I believe that was an issue that they had said was one of the issues with their occupants' final approval.
So we don't have full occupancy permit from what we.
That's my understanding from last I heard. I went and looked at it, and it did have a little slope to it, so by the letter of the law, it would require a handrail.
So that's the only thing, you just gotta fab up the handrail?
That's my understanding. It appeared to be that was the last item that they would consider, a safety.
For an occupancy permit.
That won't take long.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
I got a comment.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Oh,
Yeah, real quick. Some of you guys are mumbling and not talking into your microphone, and so you drop off, and all I hear is like, So we keep doing these things with GoToMeeting and Zoom or whatever. Remember, speak into the microphone, because we're not in the room with you. So when you talk softly or not away from the microphone, you're unintelligible. So just point that out. Thanks.
who is this on the phone?
Pardon me?
Who is this speaking?
Ed asked you.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't recognize the voice. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you want me to start coming more often?
Sure, whatever.
No, you don't need to answer.
No problem. All right, meeting is adjourned.
Okay.